Hello and welcome to the Evolution of Medicine News Videocast. It is Saturday, the 16th of April, and we are back for another week of the news. We are wrapping up the news that's relevant to our practitioner community each week, and I'm here with my partner at the Evolution of Medicine, Gabe Hoffman. Welcome, Gabe.
Hey, James. Good to be here.
So thanks so much to Embody 360 for sponsoring this week of the news. If you've been watching the forum, you know what Embody 360 is. It's a game-changing app in gaining empowerment and compliance and adherence with patients. You can track actively and passively through the system with the wearables and so forth. And this week's podcast, our interview podcast, was all about Embody 360 with Dr. Vince and Kari Thorsten, who actually started it. And one of the most interesting things about Embody 360 is that it's actually a product of the Functional Forum. We at the beginning of the Functional Forum, we wanted to put together functional doctors and technologists into a room, and that's how basically, the underlying technology that was part of Joe Cross's program became an app that's available for practitioners. And so we tell that story and more, and so we're excited to have them as a sponsor. So this week on the news, we got some very interesting stories, and we're going to start off with this. This came out today, actually early this week on Thursday. Global spending on health is expected to increase to 18.28 trillion worldwide by 2040. So this is a pretty massive number. And you can see that, it says basic global inequities in health spending are expected to persist over the next 25 years. And then it basically talks about more resources expected to be spent on health in the future, with a projected 9% of GDP globally allocated to health spending by 2040. Right, so 9% in 2040 equals 18.28 trillion. Now, what you have to remember is that right now, today, in 2016, America is 18.8% of GDP. It used to be 18. They thought it was going to be 18.2 this year, but now it's 18.8. So we're already double, and this is looking that it's growing over time. So essentially, what I just want to share with people is it's a bit of a mess. You can see that this spending is going to keep going up. But Gabe, I just wanted to see what your thoughts were about this, about this subject.
Yeah, well, look, this is the macro version of the conversation that we're having. The reason why healthcare needs to shift. This is the macro view of it, and at the micro level, I think the functional medicine doctor, myself as a practitioner, even the health coaches, they're having conversations with individual people who are saying, since it's out of pocket, sometimes the mindset is, oh, I can't afford this type of medicine, but the truth is, we can't afford not to do this type of medicine. We can't afford not to take care of our bodies in this way. We can't afford not to invest in our health, because chronic disease, when you're just managing the symptoms of chronic disease, there is no long-term version of that working, because it will break down the economy, and we see that happening. And I think for an individual, if you just manage the symptoms of chronic disease, there's no long-term version for that working either, because it ends up costing you more in quality of life, and eventually medical expenses and the inability to work and be productive and everything else that means. So it is it's an important conversation, and I feel like it's a reflection of what we're doing at the micro level as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. We said at the beginning of the Functional Forum, us in the integrative and functional medicine community need to start act like we're winning and stop acting like we're losing. Well, a big part of that is that we have at least the potential in this field to actually bring down healthcare costs by essentially keeping people well and reversing disease where possible. And we're actually seeing great examples of that with companies being really proactive and reducing their healthcare costs and even flattening the curve, flattening the acceleration, and then reducing healthcare costs. And that's why, I'm so excited about the future of our industry, because as these kind of things happen, these numbers keep going up. I mean, what percentage does it have to get to in America before businesses aren't competitive internationally, right? These are big problems, and more people are going to start to care about this. At the moment, maybe only we care about it, but more and more people are going to start to care about it. And as more people start to care about it, you've got more potential for change. So by 2040, I'll be 60 years old. And, this is what I'm going to be doing in my lifetime, in my working lifetime. And I think we have an amazing opportunity as the integrative and functional medicine community working together to be able to, create significant change and to reduce healthcare costs. And eventually all these payers whether it be government, businesses, or individuals, are going to going to want to see this kind of the reduction in cost too, because it's going to get unmanageable very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if when you hear about the pharmaceutical company tripling the price of certain drugs, like, did they look at this and see the writing on the wall, like, we can't continue at this pace? So, is this is a money grab right now? Or, you wonder what choices are being made, because when you look at this, it's pretty intense. I mean, the numbers, the way it breaks down, the projections, it's got to mean something to the people who are looking at these numbers every day as part of their business model.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's also looking to see what will come out of people's pockets, what will come out of businesses. I mean, America is unique in that businesses are paying a lot of healthcare costs. So that's been good in a certain way, but it's definitely going to become an issue in the next little while when we see that, businesses are going to potentially go bankrupt as a result of these kind of costs, or not going to be able to be competitive internationally. So it's very, very interesting to see, and I highly recommend this. Take a look at this article, and when you're speaking to other people in the community or otherwise, just to be able to stand solid in the fact that our work can reduce these healthcare costs, increase value, reduce cost, increase outcomes, and that's certainly the direction that it looks like things are moving in. Even though not many actors in this medical space have the incentive to reduce costs, more and more will as time goes on. So talking about ways to reduce costs, one of the ways is going to be technology. And this was an interesting story from this week. A 3D printed ovary from Northwestern could help restore fertility. 3D printed body parts may seem straight out of a science fiction movie, but recent bioengineering breakthrough out of Northwestern could use 3D printing to benefit women who have lost their fertility. Gabe, what are your thoughts on 3D printing an ovary?
Well, on one level, it's again something we're reading about that's completely surreal, and it is here, and people have been talking about it. I would say, looking at this coming off the last article, it's incredible, because on one hand, it's like, oh my God, like, look at the finances. What could possibly happen that could change this runaway train that is out of control? And it's like, oh, we just printed an ovary. We just 3D printed an ovary. Like, are these technologies equally insanely amazing to the point where somehow we're going to, and I like to think that it's actually going to balance itself out in some incredibly dramatic way, where we are inventing and technology is moving at such a speed that this is what you're left with. So I feel hopeful. And regardless of what I think about 3D ovaries, and that's a debate, people could have conversations about that forever, but just the idea that we're even experimenting with that type of thing is lets you know that this is not the normal world of, you can't change the way something is going in terms of a economic problem, because then you look at the way tech is stepping in and looking to solve problems that we have. I mean, these are, and someone on our team, Anthony, speaks about a lot, this is an exponential thing. These are technologies that are going to create exponential changes in what costs are and how we solve problems.
And good shout out to Exponential Medicine. On the next Functional Forum on May 2nd, we got an interview with Dr. Dan Kraft, who is the head of Singularity University's medical program and Future Med Conference. Super interesting dude, and definitely someone to keep an eye on. All right, the next one here. This was sent in by a member of our community. Thanks, Sean. He's been a big fan of the forum since the beginning.
You're one of my close friends from home.
Exactly. Conflict of interest information is buried deep in studies. These researchers want to change that. So, Gabe, he sent this to you. You thought it was cool. What's going on with this?
Well, there's a group of scientists and physicians, from around the world that are looking to address the fact that a lot of these published studies aren't really making it easy to see the sources of the study and certain aspects of it, what conflicts are there. And that's because there's a lot of money, like it talks about in this first paragraph. Basically, you would never have heard about Concord grape juice helping brain function or walnuts reducing the risk for diabetes if there wasn't a food science industry and people who are growing nuts and making grape juice being able to fund these types of studies, and really what are the ramifications of that? And is there a way to make these studies more balanced? And it's interesting to see if you scroll down a little bit, the Centers for Science in Public Interest and the NIH are the people, they're spearheading this, and they're asking for more information to be released. And I think it's a step in the right direction. It's also a community of doctors and scientists looking to advocate for the public. So that feels good as well. So it's nice to see these things coming up. I mean, we've known that a lot of scientific research has been hijacked by corporate agenda and by money. And, you don't think of Concord grapes as some powerful thing. And yet, if they need to invest money to make sure there's a study that comes out that talks about their, efficacy in a certain area, they will do so, and it will make a lot of money for them. And nutrition is such a confusing industry that if every single food has its own, funding, you're gonna be confused as to what to eat, what not to eat, and that's where we're living right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super interesting. So, this is a plan that they want to come up with, and this is going to affect PubMed. Obviously, most people on this are probably, know what PubMed is, but it's essentially a taxpayer-funded Google for medical study abstracts that doctors and patients and media rely on. So, they're trying to make this now, but I think one of the things down here said that whatever happens, there may be workarounds on PubMed readers coming soon. Christopher Robertson, a law professor at University of Arizona, created a Chrome extension where essentially it would just pop up automatically. So, this would be amazing. So it's right at the top here rather than buried. And this might be the greatest Chrome extension since John Oliver's Donald Trump.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the point maybe I wasn't making clear enough was the idea is you'll be able to see who supported the research trial and make it easy to really see who paid for the study. And that's the most important piece of information in a way. Now, that doesn't mean that just because someone paid for it, the study is no good, but it will definitely, there's a reason why they don't want you to know who's paying for these studies, and we should be able to see it easily.
Absolutely. Good stuff there. So we're going to get on to the last topic, and this came out this week as well. So Sean Parker, who you may know as the founder of Napster and one of the early investors in Facebook, he's investing $250 million to get 300 scientists and 40 labs working together to solve cancer. And I've actually been reading recently. I've had some interesting cancer stuff going on in my family, which has been crazy last week. But particularly, I've been reading The Emperor of All Maladies, which is a biography of cancer, and it won the Pulitzer Prize. And the reason why I read it is because Jeff Bland at the IHS said, this is required reading for anyone in our field. It's been super interesting to read it. And one of the things they talked about, what Sean Parker's trying to do is, he says here, he's going to back an unconventional $250 million effort to attack cancer that involves persuading hundreds of the country's top scientists, who are often in competition with each other, to join forces and unify their research targets. Now, this is really interesting for us, one, because obviously that seems like a really good idea. But secondly, one of the things that we've tried to do in the Functional Forum and the Evolution of Medicine is to help, functional integrative doctors think differently about whether they're in competition with other doctors, whether or not this is a collaborative effort to make serious change. And I think what you're seeing is the new way of thinking. People like Sean Parker, people, younger people, is not competition, but collaboration. How can we achieve significant goals with collaboration? And so I thought this was an interesting story just because it's big news. I mean, this is the number 4 most read top thing on Washington Post as of today. But also that it really underlines an ideal that we've been looking to develop at the Evolution of Medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more of that hive mind. It's bringing everyone together to realize that we only have one planet that we all live on. And it can sound corny, or it can sound however you want, but the truth is, as obvious as it is, that we all have to share this place we don't act that way. So it's great to see, someone like Sean Parker, who's a leader in terms of, he's got money and he's putting his money where he thinks it's important. And it's all about creating community between great minds and getting people on the same page rather than competing with each other and being hired by different companies who make competing products. So then they're spending on who they can get the best researchers to do things separately, and bringing them all together to deal with something, a common a common issue that we all are dealing with, which is, especially in the Western world, is cancer. So, and on that same way, the functional forum, we've looked to establish a community of people, not just through watching the show at home, but through the meetup groups and the other things we do to bring people together in the same room. And it's not just doctors. It's like we talked about with Embody 360. It's technologists with doctors together, with healthcare shareholders, and these problems need that level of collaboration to be solved. It's not going to be solved by any one person. You and I are not looking to solve anything. We're looking to build communities so we can all solve it together. And this represents that in a lot of ways. And so I think it's good news.
Yeah, it's great news. It's great leadership. I'm very excited to see it as well. It's going to be focused on cancer immunotherapy. And he says it's such an incredibly complex field. And for every answer, it seems to pose 10 more questions. I'm an entrepreneur, so I wish some of these questions had been answered yesterday. And, same type of thing. And I think what you're going to see from us later on the year is structures. We've created the first community structure, which is just let's try and get as many practitioners together as possible in the local communities, watching the functional forum. Develop safe spaces where new doctors can come into and learn about functional medicine, where they can feel a good, solid community and feel that like this is making progress. But certainly later this year, we want to develop other ways for people to collaborate over cases, to learn from best practices, and create a hive mind so that we can get more people well more quickly at lower cost. That's going to be the key. And if you have a business that does that, you're going to be super successful, as you can see from the first one, because everyone's going to want to reduce cost. So I hope that this ties together very nicely, and I hope that if you're listening to this, it's super empowering for you to be part of this community, not only seeing your patients day to day and getting them better, but also playing a part in the bigger community, getting people well, and helping to be part of the solution. So we'll have all of the links to all of these news stories on our Facebook page. We put this out every week to our Facebook community. It's been a pleasure sharing the news. It's April 16th. Thanks again to Embody 360. If you're listening to this, go out and check out our other podcast this week. It's all about delivering plans. It's part of our Future of Patient Compliance series. You'll hear from Dr. Vincent Pedre and Kari Thorsten, who came up with this technology. And you'll hear about really a new way of doing your dietary recommendations, of doing your food journals, of being able to track what your patients are doing. This is predictive medicine. This is the future of medicine, and it's available to you right now. Thanks so much for listening. It's been great to be here with your news. Thanks, Gabe, for being with me. And we'll see you next time.